It feels good to be back on a somewhat normal schedule for the podcast. Hopefully, I can keep it up through the peak of training season. I will see you on the other side. Welcome to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter and a designer, and I have for the last 6 years been a cyclist and fundraiser for AIDS Lifecycle, a 545-mile, 7-day bike journey down the coast of California, raising money for the life-saving work of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. You can find me on Instagram as Gary Knits, Gary Rides, and also on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides. How have you all been? It has been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks around here. I don't know if you saw my little live that I did. I tried to do it on Instagram and YouTube at the same time last week for the launch of the Stitch Out Loud yarn collection. I do not know that that was a super successful experiment in terms of trying to do two things with two cameras at the same time. I think that it just didn't work out that well. So if I ever plan to do something like that again, I'll figure out one of these streaming services that allows you to broadcast to a couple different places at the same time. As I mentioned, it has been a whirlwind of a couple weeks. It's only going to get busier between now and June when the AIDS life cycle actually happens, just because training is ramping up, trying to get the last bit of fundraising done between now and then, and a couple projects that have some deadlines to them. So things are getting busy, but that's just sort of the way that that I tend to roll. So let's talk about the last couple of weeks. As I mentioned, the training schedule is starting to ramp up for AIDS Lifecycle. The rain has kind of kept things a little challenging in terms of where I thought I would be at this time, but I feel pretty good. I just did my longest ride of the year yesterday, so that was 65, 66 miles. I'm going to try to repeat that tomorrow. Today is sort of a rest day, although I went to the gym and the trainer at the gym was like really pushing me. I was like, this is supposed to be my resting day. Anyway, I'm going to try to do that again, so that should get me up to 130 plus miles for the week. So I feel pretty good about that. I got to ramp that up to about 200 miles a week in the next 6 weeks, but I think that's a pretty good trajectory to get on. And then I always try to do at least one 100-mile ride and two 60 to 80 back-to-back before I head up to San Francisco for the kickoff of AIDS Lifecycle. We'll see if that actually happens this year. Given everything that's going on the fundraising side, I've decided that if my training falls off a little bit and I'm slower than usual, that's going to be fine. So that has been going on. We'll talk about the fundraising here in a minute. Last weekend, I got to do something really fun as part of the kickoff for the Spring End AIDS Knitalongs and Crochetalongs. I flew up to San Francisco to hang out for the day at the Royal Bee Yarn Company in Pacifica. It was part of the Bay Area Yarn Crawl, which seemed like, at least based on what I saw at Royal Bee, was a huge success. I think this was the first year that they were doing it, and the shop was packed the entire day. It is a beautiful shop. If you are ever in the San Francisco area, Pacifica is a real quick jump from the airport. I did not realize how close it was. We ride through Pacifica on day one of AIDS Lifecycle, but I guess because you're on a bike and things move slowly, it seems like it's farther away from the city than it really is. So it was about a 15-minute drive from the airport. So I got to hang out there all day. That she has a beautiful, Kelly, who runs the shop, has a beautiful backyard with lots of patio furniture and umbrellas. It was a sunny, gorgeous day, and I got to hang out with Cassie Monksgaard, who is the designer for the Bethel shawl, which we are working on as part of the Knitalong, and her friend Anne, and we hung out there in the backyard, and people came and went during the day. We got to meet up with a couple of different people from the Bay Area who I've known through Instagram but never met in person, so that was really fun. She was Kelly from Royal Bee was having trunk shows. From Seismic Yarn had a table there. Got to hang out with Ava from Seismic Yarn and the dye interns. We had lunch there in the backyard, and she was also Della Q was having a trunk show at the same time. So there was a lot of activity in the shop. The shop was packed all day long, and it was fun just to really take a day and just be able to hang out and knit for most of the full day. So that was really, really fun. I'll show you what the progress I've made on the Bethel shawl. But that was the kickoff for the End Aids Knitalong Crochetalong for the spring. As we always do in the spring, it is an open Knitalong Crochetalong, meaning you can work on whatever project you would like. Spring cleaning, clean up your whips and your queue. But because I had the opportunity to work with Cassie, who is Pine Needles and Poppies on Instagram, and Kelly from the Royal Bee Company, who did the yarn for the Bethel shawl, I really had to jump at that opportunity. So if you want some structure and you want to work on that project with the rest of us, that's fantastic. If you have your own projects you want to work on, those are fine as well. All you needed to do was buy an entry ticket, and you still can, from my coffee page, to be entered into the giveaways for the prizes. So that is going through the end of April. We just wrapped up the cast-on prizes, which I'm reaching out to the winners on now. And then first week of April or so will be the halftime prizes, which will be the next round, and then we'll do the ones at the end. So that was fun to be able to hang out in Pacifica in the backyard at Royal Bee for the day. The other fun thing that I started just this last weekend was a hat design class with Nina Macklin Dayton, who, if you remember, was my competition during the Knit Stars Pro-Am design competition. So Nina and Melinda were one team, and Lewis and I were the other team. But she teaches a ton of classes through Webs, the online yarn store, which is also a local yarn store in Massachusetts. And they have some sort of expert knitter program, which has a set curriculum of classes that you have to take to get that certificate. This class, I think, is part of that, but I'm just taking it as a standalone class. So I didn't really need one more thing on my plate in terms of the schedule, but I had so much fun with Nina during the Knit Stars thing that I told her I loved hats and wanted to learn more about the design and crown decreases and things like that. And so she suggested I take her class. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'll show you what I'm working on, because we already have homework. During the course of the class, we have to design 2 hats. Now, luckily, I have a couple already percolating in my head, one of which was further along. And so that's the one that I started off on. You'll see it's a little bit of a cheat, but it'll allow me to stay ahead of things given all the other stuff that I have going on. So that is for the next 6 weeks or so, and hopefully I'll have 2 or 3 hat designs to come out of that for down the road in the fall to get those released. In terms of fundraising overall, I am feeling pretty good about it. With some money that I know that is coming in through matching things, I am right about where I ended up last year, which is just over $50,000, which means I've got just under 10 to raise to get to my goal. So I've got 2 months to do that. I think I calculated last night that it's about $125 a day, which makes it sound a little easier than saying $10,000 in 2 months. But I have a couple things which we're going to talk about here in a second that are ongoing right now, which should help to get me there. And then my ongoing donations coming in from friends and family from my fundraising letter and things like that. So feel pretty good about it, but still a bit of a ways to go. Down below in the show notes, which you can also scan this QR code to get to, there's a link to my official AIDS Lifecycle fundraising page, my coffee page, which is where you can buy entry tickets for the Knitalong Crochetalong, as well as just make a donation. All that money goes directly to AIDS Lifecycle. So that's kind of where we are on fundraising. So with that, let's talk about some Craftivism ideas. I'm going to start with some other people's activities and then move on to what I'm working on. As I mentioned, the last two big fundraisers that I have going this year for AIDS Lifecycle. First is Beyond Yarn, which is a local yarn store in New Jersey. I think that this may be the second year that they've been doing this. I know I talked about it last year, but it came up again in my feed, and so I wanted to mention it this year. But they are hosting their autism-related fundraiser for the Children's Specialized Hospital, which I think is also there in New Jersey. What they've done is they've gotten a bunch of yarn dyers to donate yarn, and they've made baskets of hand-dyed yarn that they are then raffling off. They're raffling them off by size, so tickets range from $10, I believe, up to $50, and you get entered into a small to extra large basket. I believe that it's ongoing right now through the month of April, because I think I saw that sometime in early May is when they're going to announce the winners of the raffle. So head over to Beyond Yarn and check out, the link will be down below, but check out the yarn baskets that they have available up for raffle to raise money for Children's Specialized Hospital there in New Jersey. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned her before, Optimistic Soap Company makes beautiful soap, but every so often she has a fundraiser bar that she is selling. She posted recently that she was making some trans soap, meaning that it's the colors of the trans flag, and she posted up that there was going to be a fundraising soap at some point in the future. It needed to cure and whatever goes into the process of making the soap. And she had asked folks to, in the comments, mention something about a trans person that they knew. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. Of course, there were always some trolls in there. She decided to turn that into an opportunity to do some good. So for every trolly comment that she got, she donated some money to the Trevor Project. But that soap is about ready to go on sale. It's going to start at the beginning of April. It's going to be her fundraiser for April. And I believe it's $1 of every bar of soap gets donated to some trans rights organization. She had not yet decided, when I just checked today, on what organization she was going to be making the donations to, but she was soliciting recommendations from folks. So head over to Optimistic Soap. As I mentioned, her soap is beautiful, smells wonderful, and you can do some good while getting some lovely, lovely soap. In terms of what I've got going on, obviously I mentioned at the top that I kicked off Stitch Out Loud, which is the yarn collection that 19 dyers helped me create, all inspired by the sights and experiences of AIDS Lifecycle, and we'll be raising money for AIDS Lifecycle. So 40% of every sale is going to be donated directly to AIDS Lifecycle. The other 60% is the wholesale cost of the yarn that I'm paying for to the yarn dyers. It was important for me that they be compensated for their skill and their work that they put into making these gorgeous yarns. But every other penny of it, except for what Shopify takes out, which I think is about 2 or 3%, is going to be donated directly to AIDS Lifecycle. So the website is open now. It is stitchoutloud.myshopify.com, also linked down below. And that will be open for pre-orders until the 5th of April. I'm going to turn right around that next day and get the wholesale orders out to the dyers so they can start working on those. The plan is for everyone to have their yarn back to me by the first week of May, so that then beginning on the 15th or thereabouts of May, I can begin shipping all of the orders out to all of you. And you all have it, and it will all be done by the time I get on the plane to San Francisco to start riding my bike back down to Los Angeles. So that's the plan now. Obviously, things can go wrong and delays can happen, so hopefully that all works out. I feel like we built enough cushion in there, and that those last couple of weeks before the ride, my training is taking a turn the other direction. And in fact, I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but the last 10 days or so, I probably won't even have my bike because it has to go on a truck to be delivered up to San Francisco. So perfect time for me to be packing up packages of yarn and notions to folks. I'm going to go through all the colors quickly here. I went through a much more fulsome run through of the colors and sort of day by day of the ride and how the colors came to be on my live. So go check that out. I'll put a link of it up here. But I thought I'd just quickly run through them one more time here, so folks who may not want to spend an hour and a half on that can quickly get through the colors before they head over to stitchoutloud.myshopify.com to purchase their yarn. Before I do that, I also wanted to mention the final D-Stash for Good auction of the year. It will kick off on the 5th as well, so we'll be shutting down Stitch Out Loud, launching D-Stash for Good. That's going to run through the 15th, so a 10-day auction, and then all of your purchases will be shipped out from there. It's going to be not run for the first time ever on Instagram. So Instagram, the instability during the last couple of auctions, the difficulty of me being able to upload as much yarn to sell as I have to sell, sent me looking for alternatives. I did a bunch of research, and the one that I settled on for the first trial is called 32 Auctions. So I think if you go to 32auctions.com/dstash for good, you can actually see the stuff as I get it uploaded. It's not free, so there is going to be I think it's like $200 or so that I'm going to take out of the proceeds to pay for the auction. But I think that it is way worth it because of how easy it is for me to upload things, and what I think is going to be a much better bidding experience than trying to do it all on Instagram in the comments and all that. This is a real auction site, so fundraiser auctions happen using this website, and it's pretty robust. I have to say it's been so much easier uploading the things, so I was able to photograph, type up the descriptions, that part of it, and have it all uploaded, like 70 skeins of yarn in a day. And usually each of those steps, would take me most of the day, with the longest being getting 70 skeins uploaded to Instagram, which means I had to sit there and every 5 minutes, upload something to Instagram, hoping that they wouldn't shut me down. This way I can batch upload stuff very, very quickly. So it's been great from my perspective. I think it's gonna be great from the bidding perspective. You can auto bid, so you can put in what your maximum bid is, and it will automatically bid up until that point. There you can get notifications if you don't want to do that. Sorry, I keep looking up because my looks jaggy, and hopefully it is not when I go to edit this. But there's a little delay from what I'm seeing on the screen versus what I'm filming. Anyway, I think it's gonna be a much better bidding experience. So if you don't do the auto bid, you can also set it to send you text notifications or email notifications when you are outbid. Obviously, the big downside, I think, is that you have to go to a third-party website, and you have to create an account and do all that stuff there. But I think that, and the fact that I haven't quite figured out how in the future I would be able to open this up to other people to list their yarn, which has been a big part of what the D-Stash for Good model has been, is allowing you to list your yarn through me, and I get a donation, and you get to keep half the money for yourself. So as I look forward to the fall and the next D-Stash after the ride, I'm going to be spending some time trying to figure out think about a way to make that happen that's not hugely inconvenient for everybody. And so hopefully we can, because I do like that aspect, the community aspect of DStash for good, and hopefully I can figure out a way to make it relatively painless and allow that to happen. So that'll run 4.5 through 4.15. It looks like it's going to be 370 to 400 listings, some multiple skein listings, so much more yarn than 400 skeins. And so that's north of $10,000 of the yarn. We'll have an exact number when I finish uploading everything. I'm about halfway done. I've done worsted and hire, non-yarn, and sport and lace. So we're just down to the big ones, which are DK and fingering. But hopefully, in the next few days, that's all going to be pretty well done and ready to go for the 5th. So that is that on the Craftivism side of things, the things that are going on both for me and A's Lifecycle, and a couple of other ideas. Before we get into the actual knitting, we're going to talk about some yarn, and that is all the Stitch Out Loud yarn colors, and I'll show the notions as well. Let's just jump right in, kicking off with Start Proud. So this is Steph from Three Fates Yarn, and she decided to do a sock blanket, and I loved all of the different ideas that people had. So lots of sock sets. People wanted, the dyers wanted to do different bases. Everything is going to be only available on fingering, but as I go through, I'll let you know where there's some different bases in terms of sparkle versus regular. But Steph at Three Fates Yarn decided to do a gradient. So it starts with the kind of gray of the facade of the Cow Palace where we begin our ride out on day 1, and then it kind of gradiates through the colors of the official ride jersey this year. So through this to this kind of like pale red to orange. So this is called Start Proud, and available on a sock link. Next up, and this is in no particular order, but I just want to kind of show the swatches and for folks who didn't watch the live, give you a sense of what we've got going on. First up is from last year, the color that started it all. This is Love Bubble from Ken Yarn. He dyed it up before he shut down the yarn dyeing part of his business as a fundraiser last year. A very limited number of skeins of this. I think we're down into the single digits at this point of Love Bubble, but if you missed it last year and you wanted to grab some, now is your last opportunity. Next up is California Poppies from Fangirl Fibers. Emily dyed this up. This really bright, but still has some tonality in it. Orange. It's showing up, at least on my TV screen here, a little even more bright than it is, but it is a bright orange. I think this would be amazing for a doodle of some sort of cowl, a doodle cowl. But anywhere you need a pop of color, like a colorwork sweater, would be great for. Oops, sorry. The mic. Next up is Foggy Pacifica. As I mentioned, we ride through Pacifica on day 1, and it's really beautiful landscapes, but they're always kind of hazy through the fog. And so Jess of Jada Woo Designs kind of combined those two ideas into this really beautiful sort of like gold to olive green. Next up is Otter Pop, one of 2 colorways inspired by the Otter Pop Disco Pit Stop on day 2. This one by Distortion Fibers gets all those great Otter Pop colors in there. It's on a sparkle base, which I think you can see in there. And really, really, for as bright and colorful as it is, one of the most versatile colors, I think, in the batch, because it picks up colors from almost all the other colorways. So it really is a great one to mix and match with, especially with the tonals. So Otter Pop Disco by Distortion Fiber. The other Otter Pop Disco inspired colorway is from Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn, who did a self-striping sock yarn for the Otter Pop Disco stop. So this is Otter Pop Disco Stripes, available as a regular fingering weight, a sparkly fingering weight, and then as sock sets on both of those bases, with a mystery mini, which is going to be either this turquoise or the red. So this is Otter Pop Disco Stripes from Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn. She did another colorway that we'll see here in a minute. Also self-striping sock yarn, which is her jam. Next up from Coven Collective Fiber Arts is Old West Cinnamon Rolls, our snack stop in Pismo Beach. And this is being offered as a sock set as well as a full skein. There is a red, sort of burgundy red mini called With Cherries on Top to go with your cinnamon rolls. And so those are offered as a full skein and as the sock set with the red mini. Next up is one of two colorways inspired by the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who run the candlelight vigil on our last night in camp. This one is called Struttin' the Blues. It is from Monica of UP North Yarns. Also a very cool homage for the Trans Pride flag. Next up is an assigned pooling. Again, I loved everyone kind of took a different tack. This is from Briar Patch Fiber Co. Andrew at Briar Patch dyed this really great kind of washed out olive color with the pops of turquoise there to represent the river. Definitely on my list for an assigned pooling shawl. Next up is Pizzini Fried Artichokes from Yarnaceous Fiber. Another one of our snack stops. Unofficial snack stops on the ride is the fried artichoke truck on day number 2 in the middle of the Salinas Valley. Becomes this huge stop for everybody, but it's really pretty. Then we have Tent City, inspired by the yellow and blue or white and blue tents that we have in camp each night, and then the yellow pops for the Penske trucks that carry all of our gear. This is from Kimber's Cozy Creations. It also is being offered as a sock set with that bright yellow as the mini, the gear truck mini, to go along with the Tent City. I love how this one crochets up. It's like camo, but make it bright. Next up is California Stars, another one of the great sort of like nature-inspired colorways. Is really dark blue. This is from Art and Alchemy Fiber Arts. Right up my alley in terms of colors I normally work with. And then the second color, inspired by the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. This is all a glitter, again on a glitter base, from Monica at UP North Yarns. Really great. Speaking of the Candlelight Vigil, which the sisters run and organize every year on the beach in Ventura, this is Candlelight Vigil from Ava at Seismic Yarn. Really captures that beach just at dusk with the blues and the sandy colors. But then, and you can see it better in the crochet, Ava has popped in just these little pops of bright yellow to represent the candlelight vigil. This is on a regular sock base, but she is also offering it on a sparkle base to even give more of that sort of like candlelight vibe to it. One of the other tonals in the group is Surge by Sea Change Fiber. Sarah at Sea Change Fiber, inspired by the Santa Cruz Boardwalk. Really, really versatile. This blue picks up blues in a lot of the other colorways as well. This is the only non-superwash yarn in the collection. Next up is Ride Safe, Be Safe, inspired by the safety mascot Coney, which is a giant anthropomorphic traffic cone with blue hat. So this was dyed up by Sarah at Pearls Before Wine, which is the house yarn for Pearl to Walla Walla up in Washington. Again, this one in crochet I think just is magical. And next up is Drag Queen Pit Stop. Pit Stop 4 every day is run by a group of drag queens who have to audition for the role to go out and work for 7 days. This is dyed by Nancy of Trilogy Yarn. Really great kind of reds and oranges, very sexy, sultry. Also dyed with UV reactive dyes, so there you get these pops of not glow in the dark, but black light reactive yarn in there as well. So Drag Queen Pit Stop. This is Asphalt, something we see a lot of on the ride by Yuriko Oki. Really, really great tonal gray. This also is offered as a sock set with a bright yellow with gray speckles mini. So the entire set is called Asphalt and Yellow Lines. And I will put down in the show notes and put up here, a designer out of Canada has created a shawl using this yarn, also called Asphalts and Yellow Lines. And she uses the mini and the main skein for a really pretty kind of shawly scarf wrap kind of thing. Next up is Red Dress Day, one of the iconic moments of the ride. Day 5, we all dress in red to create this living age ribbon climbing up the hills into Vandenberg Air Force Base. And Leah from Pearls Before Wine did this really great red. She said she wanted to do something beautiful but somber, sort of reflecting the age ribbon. And I think she did a fantastic job. Also works really well with like Drag Queen Pit Stop, Disco, Otter Pop Disco from Distortion. Another one of the really great sort of natural beauty colorways. This is Pacific Surf from Caitlin at Porter Woolco. Works great with serge. That blue really picks up the blue in this. Also could be, if you go back to my Instagram, you'll see I did a whole like green fade with this and artichokes and Foggy Pacifica and skinny dipping in the river. So if you are a green fiend, there's definitely a fade in there for you. The other self-striping yarn that we have from Always Be Kind Yarn, this is Wine Country, all available as a sock set with either a olive or merlot mini. Surprise, you don't get to choose. Whichever one that Laura throws in your set is what you're going to get. But that is available as a full skein or as a sock set. And then last, I think, but not least on the yarn side is Finish Line. This is from Megan at Distal Fink Fiber, also on a sparkle base, and inspired by the Finish Line at Santa Monica, the Santa Monica Pier, just the colors of all the celebratory stuff at the end of the ride. So those are the yarn colors. There are also notions. First and foremost, I'll pop it up here, is this gorgeous stitch marker set from Reshma at Hello Lavender. If you've never seen her work in person, you definitely owe it to yourself to check this out. The detail in these little polymer clay stitch markers is incredible. So she has done a little disco ball to kind of represent all of the celebration that happens along the way for the week. This wave to kind of pick up on all of the, not only the fact that we're riding along the water for a lot of it, but just all the other natural things that have come up in the colorways. And then this little red flower picking up not only the red from Red Dress Day, but also the wildflowers that we see along the route. So that is the stitch marker set from Hello Lavender. We also have this stitch minder set from DK Graham, done on wood from art by Angel Gable. So it has the little pin that has Ride Love Stitch on it, and that holds all the stitch markers, which has one that says Ride and one that says Love, and then there is the age ribbon in there, as well as a little biker with yarn wheels. And that holds all your little wooden stitch markers. Again, very limited number of these. I had these made last year. Not sure what I was going to do with them this year. And so these have all been, this was basically stuff things that they had already. So it's not a pre-order. So I think we're down to single digits on that one. And then I met another rider who was selling pins. So has the age ribbon, a bike, strawberry, Red Dress Day, and California poppies. So a lot of the same things that you'll see in the yarn collection. But he was selling. He's an illustrator, and he did the illustration for this pin and was selling them as part of his age fundraising. And I said, let's put this up on the collection if you're into it. I know that Yarny people love their pins for the project bags. And so he said, sure, we'll go put it up. So this is Miguel Macias is the writer, and 100% of the sale of this on the collection is going to be donated to his ride. And luckily, he's relatively nearby, so we're going to be able to meet up and maybe do a training ride, and then he can hand off the pins to me. And last but not least are the bags. So these little drawstring project bags, printed up by Emily of Fangirl Fibers, and this is art from Angel Gable, who did the logo, and Jean Ann from Cerulean Orchid, who did all the little cartoons. So you've got Coney there, what are we doing here? The strawberry kind of made out of yarn, a disco ball made out of yarn, and then a cyclist in a red dress. So those will also be available for pre-order. So that's it for Stitch Out Loud. I hope you will all go to stitchoutloud.myshopify.com between now and the 5th of April when we close down the pre-orders. Like I said, it has been really successful from my perspective. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, we all put a lot of work into this, but you never really know until you flip the sign on the door and says open. But the first few days have been really, really fantastic. We've got, 10 more days or so of sales. So hopefully we can make a lot of ground on the $10,000 that I need to raise between now and the beginning of June. So those are the two things that we have going on fundraising wise. I hope you enjoyed the yarn. I think it all turned out great. Maybe on next episode, or maybe once the yarn comes in, I'll walk through my plans for projects. I did place my order. And I mean, obviously I wanted to have one of everything, just as sort of a memento of sort of this last ride. And we'll try to figure out some sort of project or projects that sort of incorporate all of the things. So I have this sort of like memento as I get on in my years, and I'll at least be able to say, back in the day, I used to ride my bike every summer. So maybe in a future episode, I'll go through that, because I also picked up some more sweater type quantities of things to work on a couple of different projects that I had in mind for specific colors. But with that, I guess we can move on to some actual knitting. Despite the fact that I have been spending most of my time knitting swatches, this is my main FO for the last 2 months, is as the dyers got me, with the exception of the socks, which Laura thankfully cranked out on a machine for me. Most of what I've been doing is working on these swatches as the yarn came in, because I wanted to have them to photograph for the website. But I have managed to do a little bit more knitting as well, in terms of some whips. I mentioned going to Pacifica and spending the day knitting in the backyard. This is in one of my 2 scrappy angel bags that I have projects in right now. But this is where I am on the Bethel shawl. So this is in the Royal Bee Yarn Co.'s Gary's Guacamole colorway. So this is a naturally dyed, non-superwash DK weight. And one of the things that I'll mention here, because Kelly mentioned to me when she asked me if I was alternating skeins, I said not yet. But she said, especially with the natural dye, it creates a lot of variation in the yarn, and so you definitely want to be alternating skeins when you do this, unless you don't mind some odd pooling or whatever. But this is where I am. I mean, I made really good. I mean, I'm down to, I don't know, it's probably a quarter of the first skein, and it's, as I said, it's really fun sitting around social knitting, because the first section is just garter with, some increases here and there in the middle and then on the edges. And then once you get through the big garter section, Then I think there's a mesh section, and then one that has some drop stitches. So I feel pretty good about how quickly, this was one day's work. So I feel pretty good that once I have a chance to get back to actual knitting, that I will be able to get this finished up sometime in early July. My goal is to get this done before our Hollywood Bowl season starts, which is usually later summer, because despite it being Southern California, once the sun goes down here, oftentimes at Hollywood Bowl, it's nice to have like a little wrap. So I think this will be a great one. And I'm definitely going to do the fringe. Like I don't do a lot of fringe, or it usually doesn't attract me, but I saw Cassie's sample and that she had with her at Royal Bee, and I just love the way it looked with the fringe. So I think I'm definitely going to do the fringe on this. So this is my Bethel shawl in Royal Bee Yarn Co.'s Gary's Guacamole colorway. The other thing that I've been working on diligently that I can talk about, well, I can show it, but I can't really describe exactly what it's for. It's a secret project, but this is living in my chip basket from Fiber Hustle. This is done, and I think I showed this last time, this massive skein, which is falling apart now, of Brava from Knit Picks, 500 grams. I was trying to match a color red in Wool of the Andes, but it just doesn't match, so I've had to start the project over. I just love that this giant skein of yarn. But here's where I am, and it's getting close to this prototype being finished. It is just 1x1 ribbing all the way around. I've done some decreases here. They're really, really visible, but I don't know any other way around doing them except a double decrease so that the pattern stays intact. If this works size-wise for what we're doing, when I do the second prototype, maybe I will try doing that over 2 rounds. I don't know if that'll make it less visible or worse, but if anyone has any tips on 1x1 ribbing decreases that aren't quite so visible, it's really not going to be that big of a deal if they are, to be honest. It's like I'm the only one that's going to be noticing it, because this is going to be viewed at quite a distance, I think. So we'll see. But I think I've got another, speaking of Reshma and her stitch markers, there is one of hers from her Spain collection that she did with, I think, Explore Knits this last year. But I think I have another 3 or 4 inches to go before I do another round of decreases. But it's really just a show for this gigantic. I don't know why I think it's so funny. Anyway, but I mentioned that I've started this class with Nina on hat design, and we already had our homework, which was to get started on a hat up to the crown decreases, because the next class is going to be all about crown decreases and the different ways to do them. And I think I've mentioned before, but when I was in the process of finishing up the Make the Turn scarf for the Knit Stars Pro-Am design competition, I always had it in my head that, once we decided we might have an extra skein of yarn, I decided, I did the hat. So I published the Smock It To Me hat, which takes the smocking pattern from the Make the Turn scarf and incorporates it into a hat. While I was doing that, I said, well, why not take the other pattern that's in this scarf? If people didn't like the smocking, if they wanted the other one, or they wanted to mix and match, to do a hat that is based on the Prosperity ribs, and which is the cabling, cable and twisted stitch pattern. And so that's what I've done. So I've started the body of it. And this gave me a little bit of a head start on the homework, because I have another swatch that I've started for another hat idea that I have, but it is color work, and because you're swatching in the round and doing that whole like stretch the big loop out and then knit from the loop, and then it's slow. And so I thought this would be a good way to get a jump start on the first hat, because I already know what the gauge was, because I'd already done 2 projects using the gauge, and that I could just get up to the crown decreases pretty quickly, because I also know how the pattern works, and then we can work on the crown decreases. And I think I'm going to do it differently. Well, I know I'm going to do it differently than I did on the Smock to Me hat, because when I made that hat, Nina made some comment to me saying like, oh, you could have done this other type of decrease and been able to sort of maintain the pattern a little bit longer. So I'm going to learn about that next week. But hopefully by the next episode, I will have a full hat. And then at some point, given everything else that's going on, this is not going to get published and put up on Ravelry probably until late summer, maybe even the fall, because I would like to rework both the Smock to Me hat and the scarf in another yarn, since this is not available. But I should have at least the finished sample to show. So that, and the other stuff I'm working on is other designs that are in the works, probably for later in the fall. And I don't really feel like I want to show them off yet, because they're still in the sort of prototyping phase of things. But I definitely have gotten bit by the design bug, and I'm having fun playing around with swatches and things like that. Some of which will go nowhere, some of which hopefully sometime this fall will be patterns that will be available for sale on Ravelry. And that brings us to acquisitions, and I'm going to be right back because I left mine in the other room. Okay. Obviously, you've seen most of what the new yarn that came into the house, because it's all of these Stitch Out Loud sample yarns that I've been knitting the swatches off of. But the only other thing that has come in is I got my Black Label yarn for, I don't know which month this was for, but from Lola Bean Yarn Co. This is inspired by Queen Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and it is on, I think, a new base for me. I've never seen this, Chickpea, which is her 75-25 Superwash BFL and nylon. So really fun, pinks, purples in there. I got 2 skeins of it. I will look into like a 2-skein shawl. If not, then maybe one of them will go to the prize pack or something. We shall see. But very, very pretty. And I don't think I actually have much else coming. So I'm hoping to destash a good chunk of new stuff from me, in addition to the deals that I made with dyers, since I am going to have a lot of yarn coming in from Stitch Out Loud. So I'm still trying to stick to net zero for the year, but we shall see how that goes. Otherwise, I think that is it for this episode. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your week to spend it with me. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, share, let other people know about the podcast so that we can continue to build this community. Again, if you ever have any Craftivism ideas that come across your feeds or through whatever means you get information, please let me know, because I'd love to be able to share those with everyone. So thanks so much. I'll see you in a couple weeks.